We begin the programme with some breaking news coming from South Korea. A local news agency, Yonhap, is reporting that North Korea appears to have blown up the Inter-Korean liaison office in the border city of Kaesong. It comes amid heightened tensions there. Earlier, North Korean army has warned that it might move into the demilitarized zone, separating it from South Korea. Now, a row has been brewing over what the North says are propaganda messages flown across the border in big balloons. These are leaflets coming over from South Korea by defector groups based in the South. Now, the liaison office was set up to reduce tensions between the two countries, but recently North Korea stopped picking up the phone, so all communication ceased in recent weeks. Well, later on in the programme, we will be talking to our correspondent based in Seoul, Laura Bicker, who is currently filing and getting the very latest on this situation. So tensions rising on the peninsula there. And as I say, we'll have more on this story a little later in the programme. Now to the US, where Atlanta Mayor Keisha Bottoms has announced new police reforms which will come into effect immediately after the death of Rayshard Brooks. She said she couldn't wait for official recommendations before taking action. Police will now be required to de-escalate situations with suspects and intervene if a colleague is using excessive force.
We saw the worst happen on Friday night with Mr. Brooks. It angered me and it saddened me beyond words. But I know that it is my responsibility as mayor of this great city for us to continue to work to put that anger and that sadness into action. And so this is the first of a series of actions and steps that we will take. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of our community stakeholders.
That's the Atlanta mayor. Well, all this comes as President Trump is expected to sign an executive order on police reforms today during a ceremony at the Rose Garden at the White House. For more on that, here's our North America correspondent, Peter Bowes.
The President is planning to focus on police misconduct, and a big thrust of this executive order is the setting up of a national database effectively to track those police officers who've been guilty of misconduct. And the idea seems to be to stop those officers, perhaps they've been sacked from their jobs in one district, from moving around the country and being re-employed. Another aspect of this order is the encouragement of police forces around the country to deploy social workers to work alongside police officers in situations that are not violent. So it might be dealing with a drug case or dealing with a situation involving homelessness, a situation that may involve mental illness. And the main thrust appears to be, according to officials in the White House, to bring the police closer to communities, and quite significantly, this will not involve any defunding of police forces. And we've heard about that, of course, in Minneapolis, where local councillors there plan to effectively break down their police force and rebuild it with something else that is more community-based.
And for the Black Lives Matter movement, how significant is this scene for them? Is this a big step forward that they've been looking for?
I don't think it's the big step forward that they've been hoping for. There may well be critics, and let's see when we hear more detail later in the day from the President. It may well be critics that say that the President isn't going far enough. But it is just one strand. And of course, the Democrats in the House of Representatives have put together their proposed legislation that could involve the banning of chokeholds. That is legislation that would have to get through the Republican-controlled Senate. Later this week, senators, Republicans, will be putting forward their own proposals as well. So multiple strands here, and it really does remain to be seen whether it answers many of the criticisms that we've been hearing over the last 3 weeks from Americans who've been taken to the streets.
Peter Bowes there in Los Angeles. Well, let's return to our top story. And local media in South Korea is reporting that the Inter-Korean liaison office, this is in the border city of Kaesong, has been demolished by North Korea. Those are the reports that have been coming through. Let's talk this through with Laura Bicker, who's our correspondent based in Seoul. Laura, what more can you tell us?
Well, we've heard from the Ministry of Unification here. We've got confirmation that at 14:49 local time there was an explosion at the Inter-Korean office on the border town of Kaesong. Now, we understand that smoke can still be seen billowing from the site, and there was a loud explosion, according to South Korean media. We've seen some of the pictures coming in on many of the media outlets as I'm talking to you. Now, this is a real step up, a real escalation on the part of North Korea, but it didn't come without warning. At the weekend, Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader's sister, Kim Yo-jong, released a blistering statement in which she threatened the destruction of the Inter-Korean office. It's very much a symbolic office. There's been no one there since January due to COVID-19 restrictions, but it was set up during a détente with Seoul, between Seoul and Pyongyang in 2018, after that historic summit between President Moon of South Korea and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. It was set up with the purpose to allow the two Koreas to communicate. Over the last few months, tensions have escalated, and just last week, North Korea cut all communication ties with the South. Now they appear to be escalating things and demolishing the office.
So, as you say, North Korea really upping the ante here. So what might happen next?
Well, it's interesting because just a few hours earlier, the North Korean military released a statement saying that it would step up its plans, and it had plans to perhaps increase its presence in the border area. Now, again, back in 2018, they blew up guard posts, 10 guard posts each, along that kind of heavily fortified border along the DMZ. Now, when they did that, it was with the aim of creating a peace zone in this heavily fortified border in years to come. And President Moon here in South Korea called it irreversible peace process. Well, it seems that the North Koreans are testing that now. The threat from the North Korean army was that they would go back into these areas that they vacated in 2018. So we're going to be watching that area carefully. We know certainly the Ministry of Defence has said that they're stepping up intelligence, and they're also stepping up the command of that area. And certainly Seoul will be watching to see what happens next.
OK, Laura, we will speak to you very soon. I'm sure Laura Bicker based in Seoul for us.